What up, y'all? What up? Sorry, I'm having a problem getting this sucker going live on X or Twitter, if you will. So maybe I won't be appearing there today. My apologies on that. But lots I want to get to today as far as this show and this program. Yeah, looking like it's not going live there right now. Not sure why. Anyhow, lots I want to get to on the program today, including the National Player of the Year debate, which is something that is and has been, I thought, kind of settled over the weekend. To be honest with you, I'm up. Somebody said I'm up. Is it working now over there? No, it doesn't look like it's working on X/Twitter. I will stop being distracted by that in 1 second. I'm just trying to get to I try to get to as much of the audience as I can, but it looks like that may be a lost cause today. Anyhow, as far as the National Player of the Year debate goes, you can check out my power rankings in the description below. And I really do think that JuJu Watkins separated herself over the recent weeks and recent games and everything of that nature, because I think in those contests she was so dominant and so overwhelmingly good that it doesn't just come down to two games. And I think some of the people that are now pushing back on that are themselves being a little disingenuous in what they're saying is disingenuous coverage. More or less, basically the talking point that I have seen a bunch is that in this case, the talking point is that JuJu has just had a couple good games and she's winning it because of a couple good games, and Hannah Hidalgo's entire season is being punished. And I just don't see that as being the case. Look, when I originally did my version of these power rankings, my original version, I had JuJu at 2 because people think this is some sort of media conspiracy to prop up JuJu Watkins when it's simply not the case. Like, maybe some people in the media have gone overboard or whatever, and I understand that feeling. And I think it's going to relate to the second topic I'm going to get to in just a second, because I understand where that's coming from and I understand why people feel that way. Why people think that she was being propped to take the spot or to be anointed the next, and there was a natural backlash to that. But when I originally did these rankings, I had Hannah Hidalgo first. And I love Hidalgo's game. I was probably one of her biggest cheerleaders all season long. I was, banging the Hidalgo drum at the beginning of the year and talking about how exciting it was to watch her play. It is. But even with that said, and when I had Hidalgo in first place, I also, said at that time that JuJu Watkins was second. So it's not as if JuJu came out of nowhere. It's not as if JuJu is, a player who all of a sudden burst on the scene. This was somebody who's been in the conversation all year long. This is somebody who has been very good across the entirety of the season. I think, what did I just see? She's got her 7th Big Ten Player of the Week award just now. So that's part of, 7 Big Ten Player of the Week awards for JuJu Watkins. Not player of the last 2 games. 7 player of the week awards during the year. And the phrase, "what have you done for me lately," does apply in certain extents and certain senses. Like, people are blinded by what they've seen, you know, of late. That's fair. That's fair to say. And what you did see of late was Hidalgo's worst performances of the year and JuJu's best performances of the year. That is fair. And JuJu did have some struggles. She had some struggles, particularly in late January into early February, was when she was not at her best. Late January into early February. But Hidalgo, since really she had a bit of an ankle injury, has not been very good over a period of several games now, not like one or two. And when you look at the two of them across, the season, when you say it's a season-long award, their season numbers are very comparable. Their season numbers are not way off of one another. They're pretty close. And JuJu is getting more defensive attention than anybody. Is also a defensive monster where her size helps her. And she passes the hell out of the eye test. Because I could be looked at as what would be viewed as a skeptic of JuJu. You could take what I've said about JuJu and go, I got accused of being a hater of JuJu. But she made me a full-on convert, and she's undeniable. And I see people talking about her being a shot chucker and all these sort of things. Like, it's not as if their field goal percentages are some huge, crazy chasm. And yeah, it does matter what you do against the top teams. It does matter what you do, against UCLA when you absolutely dominate them. Or how about UConn? She also got the best out of that matchup with Paige Beckers. And yeah, Hannah did too early in the season. Where she beat both USC and UConn. But I got news for you. JuJu's going to win National Player of the Year, and she deserves it. It's not some conspiracy. Her team finished the season at its hottest. What are they ranked? Number 2 in the country right now in the latest rankings? I believe USC is USC is 26-2. They're number 2 in the country to end the regular season. They beat a previous number 1 team, now number 4, twice in recent games. She was completely dominant in those games. She also was the best player on the floor head-to-head with Paige Beckers. So you can be upset about, the results or whatever, and there are no results, by the way. But there are no results. It hasn't been I keep people saying it shouldn't be unanimous. That's the athletics vote. That's not the actual result, which we don't have yet. So you can't say it was unanimous because it doesn't mean it was unanimous. But I say this coming to you as someone who would have been a Hannah Hidalgo voter and became what would have been a JuJu Watkins, or would be a JuJu Watkins voter. I was won over. You can't be a basketball fan and watch what JuJu did against UCLA and not come away impressed. I'm sorry. Which brings us to, I think I got the Twitter issue fixed. I'm now live. So let me re-summarize what I just said about that real quick. But I think Hannah Hidalgo has indeed had a great game or a great season. Had a great game against JuJu. had a great game against UConn early in the year, but she's played her worst stretch of late. That coincides with JuJu's best stretch. When you look at the season as a whole, the season as a whole, it's pretty darn close. There's not a clear advantage one way or the other. The numbers are pretty darn close. And yet, one team has fewer losses, half as many losses, is the number 2 team in the country, just beat another top 5 team twice, and had a player who put on the kind of performances that simply can't be ignored. Because I am factoring the eye test in here. So I want to say that, again, you're talking about somebody who was won over in this case. Not somebody that came into this season thinking, all right, here's the debate or here's the coronation. I didn't come into the year going, it's going to be JuJu and nobody else. Right? I was won over by JuJu. And the last time I did power rankings, JuJu was number 2. Now she's 1. And Hidalgo's 2. They just flipped spots. She didn't come out of nowhere. So I think that narrative is a little disingenuous. And I do believe it's partially related to this. Because I think there are a lot of Caitlin Clark fans who don't like the way that JuJu has sort of been positioned as the one who's going to take her spot, or no one's going to care about Clark after JuJu comes, and Clark has been discredited in that regard. And I saw another one of those viral tweets about the two of them being compared yesterday. And one thing I'll say is, I think it's good for the sport. I think it's great for the sport if they're compared. That means the upward trajectory is only going to continue. Because as much as Caitlin Clark is responsible for this huge explosion in the women's game, you don't want to base your product and your sport around one player for its entirety, right? Like, that's not healthy. The idea that it's only Caitlin Clark people care about, which we've seen people start to care about more and more players over time. Uh-oh. Did something happen to the stream? Am I here, y'all? Oh, somebody's telling me the stream has been buffering. I'm sorry. I can't control what I can't control, guys. I'm doing my best. Let me see if I can. Oh, I'm being told everything's good now. Sorry, y'all. Let me know where I was, what my train of thought was when that happened. It happened last time too. Other people said they didn't lose me. I don't know. Anyhow, what I was saying is, it's not healthy for the sport if Caitlin Clark is the only player that people care about, or that's the way that the sport is talked about through the lens and the framing of just Caitlin Clark. You need that next group. You need that those next players. And you need those genuine rivals too. I mean, JuJu's a ways away from being back or being into the league. And she's a ways away from actually being a pro. So in that regard, it might be, a while before it happens. But everybody talks about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and they'll forever be linked to a certain extent. But you want somebody to come in who feels that way and feels like, the next in line and feels like somebody that can go head to head. Like, that's healthy. And look, I've been really impressed with JuJu lately. Like, pops off the screen. She impacts the game in every way. She's a defensive monster. She got down in there with Lauren Betts and was being a physical presence inside. She can take it to the rack. She's got the mid-range. When she shoots the three, she really can't be stopped. She's getting the lion's share of the defensive attention. You know, all these things. And I'll say this. The problem becomes when people use it as a sneak diss of Caitlin Clark, or they feel so compelled to replace Caitlin Clark. That's the issue. Like people go, all right, this player is better than Caitlin Clark. You know how hard it is to be better than Caitlin Clark? Yeah, that is not an easy endeavor. That is not something that is just going to happen. And when people talk about all the different ways Juju's an all-around player, they're also ignoring just how great a basketball player Caitlin Clark is. I think people forget how great a basketball player Caitlin Clark is sometimes. Because Caitlin is, when you're comparing the two, like if I'm like looking at the two, where does Juju have the advantage? She has a size advantage. And she has the defensive advantage. And I would say right now she has the mid-range advantage. She's probably a better scorer in the mid-range. So Juju wins on defense, she wins on size, and she wins on mid-range. Where does Clark win? Clark is a better outside shooter. Clark is a way better playmaker. I mean, Clark is one of the best playmakers I've ever seen. Clark's basketball genius stacks up with anyone I've ever seen, male or female. She is extraordinarily gifted as a playmaker. And another thing that people leave out in this conversation with Caitlin is just how awesome she is as a finisher. Caitlin is an incredible finisher around the rim. She shot as well as Asia Wilson at the basket last year. So I think people like to just act like because Juju's big and strong that she's a better finisher than Caitlin. And I don't know if that's the case either. Juju might be the best finisher in women's college basketball, but to be Clark as a finisher, that's tough. Clark also scored in college at every single level, was unstoppable as a scorer. So when I talk about the comparisons, I think it's healthy for a sport in a sense, because you want, you want those players to come up. You want these healthy debates. I think it shows you the growth of a lot of these players and the sports themselves. But it shouldn't be done in a convenient way or a way to try and get somebody else out the paint, because so many people are desperate for it not to be Caitlin Clark. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how good JuJu Watkins is, Caitlin Clark ain't going anywhere. And up to this point, I've never seen a player as good as Caitlin Clark, or I think where she can be. Juju's the way I would put it is, Juju is the best prospect since Caitlin Clark. And when you're the best prospect since somebody, the comparisons then start to that person. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, Juju is nice. Juju's got next. Here's where Juju's better than Clark. Here's where Clark's better than Juju. That's all good to me. That's sports. That's hoops talk. I think where it becomes silly and almost a parody of itself is when people go, oh, no one's going to care about Clark when Juju's here, or she's going to make her look like trash, or, she's about to be replaced, or Juju's so much better than her in every single way. That you're not being intellectually honest in that regard. So those are my top line thoughts. on those two topics, both the National Player of the Year debate and, of course, as I said just now, the comparisons between JuJu and Caitlin Clark. I mean, these things always happen. The comparisons always happen. But don't front or sleep on what Caitlin Clark is or why Caitlin Clark became, a lot of people did the same thing with Caitlin. She's a media darling. She is a media darling. The media caught on to Caitlin Clark because of Caitlin Clark's popularity, which was based on the basketball. And then I think you got some of the fans having a backlash to JuJu because she's been hyped as the next face of the sport or something along those lines. And they want to see her earn it, I suppose. But she earned it over the course of this season. And she's undeniable. She's the truth. Made a convert out of me. So there's other stuff I can get to on the show today, but those were the top line thoughts. Please like, subscribe, comment, all those good things. Super chats and member chats get read first, as I always say, and let you know. Of course, those are appreciated because they also help support the channel. And by support the channel, I mean me. We're all good from the technical side now, guys. Sorry. Maybe I needed to close. If I could control that sort of stuff, I would. But some things are out of my hands. Like I started the show, I couldn't get live on X. Now I believe I am. Then some of y'all said there was a YouTube hiccup. And now I'll get to some of the troll comments in here. A lot of y'all just try to troll me. I mean, come on, y'all. I think I'm fair. I give you my honest take and opinion. I back it up. Like, what do y'all want from me? Some of y'all. You just come in here to try and get a reaction. Maybe I shouldn't put your comments on the screen. Like, let's go to Kevin Zwicker with the first super chat of the day. JuJu on the beat. Look, JuJu also has a good personality. She sells herself well. She represents herself well. I mean, there's nothing not to like. There's nothing not to like. And a lot of, not everything needs to be viewed through the prism of Caitlin Clark either, right? Like, just like these are two sides of the same coin, right? Where on one side of the coin, nobody needs to diminish Caitlin Clark or her accomplishments or her achievements or just how unbelievably awesome she is as a basketball player in order to hype up another basketball player or somebody that's on the come up. And then the other side of the coin is nobody needs to put everything that's ever talked about with another player through the lens of Caitlin Clark. Oh, I don't think they're as entertaining as Caitlin Clark, or they're not as popular as Caitlin Clark, or so on and so forth, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball, of course, to women's sports, I would say. But for that to be capitalized on and for her legacy long term, it can't always be about Caitlin Clark all the time for the remainder of time. So those two things are both true at the same time. All right, I got a lot of comments to try and sort through here. Again, member chats, super chats, I will try to get to first. Well, definitely the super chats I see, member chats as well. Lisa Diaz says, hello. What up, Lisa? Diana Noble says, I see CC being the herald of a new generation of players where the bar for all college kids is a little higher than it might have been before. Yeah, I think the way it's looked at and consumed is different than it ever was before or ever will be again. Things just ain't the same for gangsters, as the old saying goes. For sure. Looking for the member chats first. Oh, Diana, yes, March Madness counts for the Wooden Award, I believe. I believe the Wooden Award takes into account postseason play and tournament play. So that could factor in as well. That could factor in as well. My Wi-Fi is good. Yeah. There we go. All right. All right, I'll get to the other chats as well right now. There are so many of them, guys. I'm going to have to start asking for, some of them to be super chatted or something in order for me to sort through them, guys. I cannot, without a moderator or something, get to all of these directly and the like, but I'll do my best. Robert H says she's an eyesore to watch. Watch the Iowa versus USC game. She's just a ball hog who shoots 40 shots a game. LMAO. She is literally who Swoops claimed Caitlin was. Besides, she's not a fifth-year senior. Well, again, just like with Swoops there, you don't have to lie to make your point. She doesn't shoot 40 shots a game. She shoots 18 shots a game. I mean, you don't have to lie. These are statistical things. I'll look it up just to make sure I have the number exactly right. But JuJu Watkins, 18 attempts per game this year. She shot 22 times a game last year, so her shot attempts are actually down quite a bit. Caitlin Clark, Iowa. Let me look this up real quick. Hang on. How many shots did Caitlin Clark take a game at Iowa? Where's her college stats? Caitlin. Oh, wow. It's funny. I went to, let me show you guys this real quick. This is pretty cool. So I'm looking up Caitlin's Iowa stats, and look who the video is. Clark. Look, this sort of ties into what I was saying about Clark now being. So there you go. Caitlin Clark's Iowa stats. She shot 23 times a game her senior year. The year before, 18. So Caitlin and JuJu shot the same amount in college. So she doesn't shoot 40 shots a game. You made that up. Charlie B says Tania Latson is not getting enough attention. I mean, I don't know how. I actually think she's getting plenty of attention now. I mean, through the case and the pleading of Tania Latson is not getting enough attention. I see all the time. Tania Latson now, if your list doesn't have Tania Latson on it, your list is invalid, or all these other comments. I think she's getting way more attention than I would have thought she would get at the beginning of the season, I guess I would say. I had her on the list. Maybe the Hulk could moderate the chat. Thank you, Erie, for the suggestion. Very even-keeled fella. That Hulk. Go back up here. I think I had somebody ask me about my rankings, so I was going to answer that too. But I'll let Mike Hall's message go up here. Hit the like button. Yes, please. Like, subscribe, all those good things. My apologies for any of the technical difficulties. Thank you for sticking with me through those. Oh, this is the one. My power rankings are ridiculous. Paige at number 3. That's nuts. How is it nuts? Like, again, I was skeptical of Paige and I was underwhelmed by Paige at the beginning of the season. Paige has been, I think part of this goes through, again, that prism of the comparisons to Clark. And some of Clark's fans get a natural backlash because they feel like they're getting fast tracked into these comparisons or trying to be used to discredit Clark. But look at Paige's body of work as a season now. She's been quite good since January. She's shooting over 50% from the floor, over 40% from three. She's scoring 18.6 points a game, I think it is. And that's on 13 shots. So if she were taking the 18 shots, she'd be right up there with the top scorers in the country. She's also the lead facilitator for UConn on a team that finished the year incredibly strong, with a rout of South Carolina included. Is 28-3, I believe, on the season. What is wrong with putting her at number 3? Most efficient scorer in the country, lead guard on the number 3 team in the country by the AP rankings, number 1 team in the country by the net rankings. I don't see why it's nuts. And then who should definitely be ahead of her? That's what I would ask. That is what I would ask. No, I don't disregard all of JuJu's bad games, Lindy Smallwood. I take the entire season into consideration. I'm not basing it on 2 games. But again, I had JuJu number 2. All she did was jump 1 spot for me from 2 to 1. And that happened on the recent games, yeah. That happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, yeah. I'm not going to not admit that, but there's nothing wrong with that either. She was unbelievable in those games against UCLA. Her team finished as maybe the hottest in the country. And Hidalgo struggled down the stretch of the season. And look at here's their head-to-head numbers. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was a clear advantage one way and just getting caught up by a couple games. Hannah averaged 24.2 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 3.8 assists. JuJu averaged 24.4 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 3.6 assists. So the scoring is a wash. JuJu with a little bit more rebounds. The assists are a wash. Hannah's field goal percentage a little bit higher. I would say JuJu's, as much as Hannah's a feisty defensive guard, I would say JuJu's defensive impact is higher because of her size and the amount of block shots she gets. She's got 2 blocks a game, does JuJu. Hannah has 3.7 steals a game, so she's has the advantage when it comes to steals, but JuJu's still getting 2 steals a game. There's not like it's not like there's a decided advantage in Hidalgo's favor that is being erased because of a couple games. JuJu's season is being punctuated by those games. So Blake 22 keeps making the same point other people are making. People ignore all of her bad games for some reason. No, she had bad games. What is the determining argument here? Do you want to count their bad games and stack them up one or another? Want to show me who had more bad? Their seasons are very similar. JuJu finished better and her team finished better. Is that not enough to break a tie? If you want to call it a tie? Jay Alam says USA Today literally did a whole article saying the next face of the WNBA should be a black person. And all season they've been propping up JuJu. I got no idea about that. That makes no difference. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenal basketball player, a generational, once in a lifetime basketball player. Ain't got nothing to do with her being white. And JuJu is an incredible basketball player who has passed every, eye test imaginable in the last couple of weeks. And it's got nothing to do with the color of her skin either. Hannah is a defensive menace, pest. She's feisty, but I don't know if she's as much of a defensive monster. I saw, speaking of Tania Latson, who was in the chat earlier, take it right by Hannah Hidalgo over and over again down the stretch of that Florida State Notre Dame game. That's where size does factor in. You can only offer so much resistance when you're undersized sometimes, and you don't get bonus points for performing well undersized either. That's just the nature of the beast. I've always felt that Hannah Hidalgo is, her size won't hold her back because of her heart and her quickness, but there are some advantages to just being larger on the basketball floor. Cami9 says, no, they should not be compared. I mean, again, if the comparison is being used to bring one down versus the other, that is a problem. But if the comparison is because, you got another great player coming on the scene and we have an honest basketball talk about it, I got no problem. That's what happens in sports. Chronicles WBB TV says, isn't that what you accuse other people of when it comes to Caitlin Clark? You accuse other people of being a hater of Caitlin Clark whenever someone questions her game or her defense. No, I don't. I mean, I accuse people of being a hater of Caitlin Clark when they're obviously hating on Caitlin Clark. Look, there is no way to hate on Caitlin Clark's game. That's the truth. If you're a basketball fan, you cannot watch Caitlin Clark's game and hate on it. Otherwise, I just question your credentials, your critical thinking ability, your intuition, everything about what it means to diagnose and assess something. Now, you can critique. You could say she can get better in this way. You could say she's not the best defensive player in the world or something like that, but there's no way to question her game. Overall, we can nitpick it. You can critique it. I'm fine with that. Here's another. This is good. John. Hannah, 78.9 defensive rating, 119.4 offensive rating. JuJu, 75.8 defensive rating, 115.4 offensive rating. I mean, that's a dead heat, no? The way I see that, it only adds to what I said before, that the statistical profiles are close to a dead heat. I mean, by that measure, it's almost completely a wash. Just like their overall statistics are almost completely a wash. And again, to me, the tie goes to the player who played the best down the stretch, who finished with signature wins, and whose team finished better. I don't think that's controversial. You could argue it, but I don't know how it's controversial. Because again, I'm not someone who came into the season with JuJu anointed immediately. I'm not someone who at midseason had JuJu at number 1. She won me over. So if anything, I would say I'm the opposite of a lot of what people are putting out there. And a lot of, the idea of this preordained media narrative. John, I thank you for that chat and that information. Thank you. Again, super chats, member chats will go up immediately as I see them. Anthony Pichetti says JuJu's point per game average declined from 27 last season to 24.4. So, I mean, she took 4 fewer shots or whatever it is. That doesn't mean she had a better or worse season. It means it's going to be hard for. Look, JuJu's not going to catch Caitlin Clark's scoring record. I don't think that's happening. Or it's very, very highly unlikely. But I don't think that proves anything. Too much credit for a UCLA team that barely played defense against US. So, I mean, so we're just going to discredit anything? UCLA was number 1. They're still number 4. Who else are they supposed to beat? They beat UConn too, who's number 3. So that's 3 wins over top 5 teams. And she was the best player on the floor in that game. She was awesome in the first half of that game. Jay Alam says it ain't JuJu and some scrubs. It ain't Hannah and some scrubs neither. Hannah plays with Olivia Miles and Sonia Citron. All right, I'm making my way through the chat. Nosy Gamer says, unless Hidalgo really outplays JuJu, the media will go with the narrative they've pushed all year of JuJu being number 1. Not a knock on JuJu, just looking at how the media acts. Again, I had Hannah ahead of her. I don't know how you want me to respond to that. I had Hannah ahead of her, and now I don't. This is a personal preference, Jeffrey. JuJu, like Wilson, good players, not exciting to watch. I think JuJu is far more exciting to watch than A'ja Wilson, personally. One versus one, who wins, Gigi or CC or JuJu? Who cares? I mean, that's irrelevant. I think it could go either way because JuJu has the size advantage, but Clark has the range advantage. I mean, we're counting threes. But regardless, that one-on-one ain't basketball. This is probably the fairest critique I've seen so far in this chat. I think JuJu is great, but I think she does get a pretty generous whistle, not only with fouls called on her, but she fouls quite a lot and it doesn't get called. She's great, just something I noticed. Fair. I got John with more stats. JuJu, field goal percentage 43%, three-point percentage 34%, effective field goal percentage 49%, 2-point percentage, 48%. Hannah, field goal percentage, 46%. 3-point percentage, 40. Effective field goal percentage, 52%. 2-point percentage, 48%. Yeah, so Hannah has an advantage in field goal percentage, which I knew. When you look at the effective field goal percentage, that's pretty close. I don't think it's enough to say like, oh my gosh, this is one way advantage or the other. And I would argue that JuJu commands more defensive attention than Hannah does, especially on the perimeter. JuJu is seeing doubles and triples every game. Hannah is playing alongside another great guard and a small forward who's going to be drafted near the top of the draft as well. I think Notre Dame's biggest flaw is their interior and their physical presence and size. And that could be their fatal flaw come tournament time. But if you wanted to use efficiency numbers, probably the best argument for Hannah is that she has been slightly more efficient than JuJu. To me, I think taking everything into account, the way JuJu finished the season, the signature wins, the team record, and her clear impact on every facet of the game gave me, put her ahead of Hannah for me by the end of the year when I had Hannah ahead of her. Thank you for the numbers, though. Always helps. Clark has more than great court vision, Cami Knight. She has transcendent court vision. She is unbelievable seeing the floor. Unbelievable. Like, takes my breath away the way she sees the floor. Twofold says CC is also pretty fast with her drive. Caitlin Clark is a hella athlete. That's where she gets penalized for being white, probably. If she gains any popularity from being white, she probably also gets some sort of penalty for that, sneaky white athleticism. I mean, Caitlin has incredible endurance. She moves very fast. She's super strong. Bobby Yu says people don't realize how good Caitlin is at playing bully ball. Yeah, Caitlin's an excellent finisher at the rack. She's a monster. C-Man says Clark has mid-range game and floaters now from off-season workouts in her videos with Keith Porter. Well, we got to see that put into action. I'm not going to, just like I'm not going to call Angel Reese a great three-point shooter because she had a couple threes in a workout. Same goes for Caitlin. Those are the things that I think she needed to work on, and she worked on. She's been working on it. I have no doubt that she's going to implement that stuff for her game. But I need to see it play out first before I consider it part of her game. I mean, Diana, yeah, 100% we're having this discussion because it's a long, slow off season. Definitely a big factor. DJML says, Tanai Latson is my player of the year. She's just not getting the same coverage. Well, look, I mean, she had 9 points last night. Latson. She's leading the country in scoring. She was great against Notre Dame. But if we're going to play that game of like people have had bad games or whatever, she was 3 of 21 yesterday. 7 of 20 in the Notre Dame game. She didn't come on until late in that game. 3 of 11 with 13 points in a loss to Cal on January 12th. It's not like she's crushed it every game either. By these same arguments I hear and hear, she also played fewer games, which does matter. She played 26 games. How many games did JuJu play? I think Hannah played about 26 games too because she had the ankle injury. JuJu played 28 games. So she was on the floor for 2 more games. Bobby Yu says it is a relief that Robin does not express the fake moral outrage that other Caitlin Clark YouTube pundits exhibit at the hype and expectation thrown JuJu and Paige's way. I mean, look, it's part of sports. Like I said, It's up to them to live up to it. But, as long as it's not being used in a nefarious way to tear down Caitlin Clark, it's good for the sport. And they're going to sink or swim. Nitro Dust says, it's ridiculous for you or anyone else to be comparing a 19-year-old college sophomore to a 23-year-old young lady going into her second pro season. It's insulting to Clark and unfair to Watkins. Well, what's insulting to Clark is when people say that she's just like far and away better than Caitlin Clark already. When Caitlin Clark went into the WNBA and dominated as a rookie, did things no one has ever done before. And was just tremendous in every facet. That's when it's insulting. And look, I think if you ask JuJu, she'd be flattered by it because it shows you how good she's been. So I don't think it's ridiculous. I'm not directly comparing them in the sense of they're not even on the same playing field right now or, in the same league. Literally, they're not in the same league, right? But I don't think it's ridiculous to talk about it and talk about her being the next best prospect since Clark or the best prospect since Clark and how their games match up and what their relative strengths and weaknesses are. You act like 23 and 19 is like the difference between 40 and 17. Robert H., I think a lot of people said Angel Reese should be the rookie of the year and we're just caught up in that. I don't think you should take it so personally. JuJu, will JuJu get the same foul calls in the WNBA, says Justin. We'll see. I mean, I think because she goes to the rack and because she's big and strong, it helps her case. The WNBA was rough on Clark. She did not get a good whistle as a rookie. And it's a very physical league, as we've seen. So maybe not to the same extent. How many free throws is she shooting a game? 8, which is the same as last year. She's getting about 6.5 points off the free throw line. Definitely shooting a good amount of free throws. Definitely gets a fortuitous whistle. There's no question. Lindy Smallwood says, I hype players all the time. Yeah, good. Shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I hype players? I don't understand. Sarah Gobrick says, go ahead and talk about JuJu. That shouldn't diminish CC. Exactly. Well, again, but that was the point I was making. It's two sides of the same coin, right? On one side, you have people propping up JuJu to tear down Clark. And on the other side, you have Clark fans who don't allow anybody to be talked about without bringing Clark into the conversation. So you get the Clark haters, or what do they call them? The Hatelins, and the Clarkies, two sides of the same coin. Charles Anderson says, I'm doing good. I don't know. When was I not relaxed? I'm not sure. Tulip says, I gave an honest assessment. My dog Butters is driving me crazy. First she wants in, then she wants out of this room. Come on. Come here. What is your problem? Like, make up your mind. Make up your mind. Okay, are you going to stay in here or are you going to leave? Susan Larson says CC compared to NBA players. JuJu is compared to CC. Yeah, I mean, well, look, CC's the most popular athlete in America right now. The biggest basketball player in the world. I got no problem saying. I said I'll scream that from a mountaintop. So she's the standard. That's why it's happening. She's the standard. Who else are you going to compare somebody to if you want them to be, or if you're thinking of them as great? And if you want people to talk about what you're saying, because Clark brings the most engagement. Let's hype up Plum. Kevin is a big Kelsey Plum fan. I'm excited to see Kelsey Plum on the on the Sparks. I think it's a great opportunity for her. Basil says going through the chat comments are not that hard. The part you are having difficulty with is sorting the ones you don't want to address. You do it while hosting the show, dude. You do it while hosting. Yes, there are certain things I don't want. It's easy. With the click of a button, I can put it up on the screen. There are certain things I don't want up on the screen. Not necessarily because I'm afraid to address them, but because I don't want to hype them or share them or boost them. I try to address people who are contrary to me all the time. But yes, when you're getting however many comments I'm getting, hundreds of comments, while trying to keep your train of thought and hosting the show and trying to make sure you get the right ones up first, it's not that easy. When you're sitting there watching me talk and scrolling through, it's probably a little easier. And then some of y'all are talking to each other, in the chat. So I want to make sure I'm not posting your comments between one another. Michael LeBlanc says Paige didn't take the extra shots because she thinks she won't. This is why her percentage is high and she doesn't take those shots, not to mention the level of talent that surrounds her. Look, Paige has good players around her, no question. I've been very critical of Paige all season. She's played really well for a good stretch now. She's the best facilitator maybe in the country. Certainly on that team, obviously. And they're playing their best ball. She's playing her best ball. They're playing their best ball. They crushed South Carolina. They finished third in the country. They only lost 3 games all season, and she's scoring efficiently. I'm sorry. I think it's much stranger to have a problem with me ranking her third in the national power rankings than wanting to see her banished or wherever. Like, where would she be on the list? What's the fair place to put her on the list? She's obviously top 5. Sil says was not a Paige fan, but she's been balling out lately. The best college floor general, in my opinion. I totally get why she would go number 1 overall, especially considering, look, if JuJu were going out right now, she'd go number 1 overall. But considering the competition for Paige, yeah. Again, Rico Rogers, I don't think that's fair for all Clark fans either. Clark fans just started watching basketball but have so much to say. Clark fans are the best thing that's ever happened to women's basketball also, right? Like, so many different fans have come in. Some of them can be extra. Yes. Some of them are newbies and don't know what they're talking about. Some of them are huge basketball fans. A lot of the Clark fans, I think, were NBA fans too. So I'm not labeling anybody with a broad brush, but the extra fan attention from Clark devotees or just casual fans that came in as a result of Caitlin Clark is the best thing that's ever happened to the WNBA, to women's basketball, and maybe to women's sports. Ever. VVS says the unanimous part, though, I don't know. Well, the unanimous was The Athletic. That's not, we don't know what the real votes are. That's one media outlets, however many writers they had vote. Kim Kelly says I'm spot on. Thank you for your support, as always, Kim. Always nice to see your face on the avatar. What are we betting on that I won't talk about? One of y'all spotlight it so I can. Bobby and Basil are betting on something I won't talk about, but I don't even know what they're talking about. Because, guys, I can't follow your side conversations in the middle of hosting a show. Someone make a clear message on what you're talking about. And I will address it. I'm not afraid to address anything. I mean, this is Susan. So her numbers are a result of stat padding, and Hannah earned her. I've seen Hannah on the floor in blowouts. Do you know in Notre Dame's 19-game winning streak, they were winning by like 30 points a game? You don't think she's stat padded by that same definition? That's not fair. Cammy9 says, I love them both, but my heart is with Hannah, to be honest. That's fair. You're allowed to root for somebody. No one's saying that. Justin says media was right to hype JuJu given the result. Again, I changed my opinion. I did not start with JuJu first. At least as the season was, was going along and early on. Kevin wants me to dress the post show on his channel. I did a show after the WWE Elimination Chamber the other night. Raj, my son, whose YouTube channel is Raj-Talk, over on YouTube. He was on there too. This was the John Cena heel turn the other day from Elimination Chamber. I saw Kevin, in our group chat earlier trying to say it was bigger than Hulk Hogan's heel turn, which I disagree with because that launched the NWO. Was more shocking, in my opinion, given their relative phases of their career. And, Hogan was the first crossover superstar built completely on Hulkamania. But I still really enjoyed John Cena's heel turn. I'm intrigued by where they're going. And I thought that was one of the best WWE shows ever from top to bottom, really. Like, that jumped off immediately. What is Clark's scoring record? I'm talking about the all-time NCAA scoring record. That was Kelsey Plum's on the women's side before she broke it, and Crystal Pete's overall before she broke it. Roger Hartman says Iowa shut JuJu down. I saw the game. Great performance by Iowa that day. Yes, Clark is in the title of the stream. What's your problem, Twiggy? I've been talking about Caitlin Clark being compared to JuJu Watkins as part of this conversation. Why wouldn't she be in the title of the stream? Trying here, y'all. I still got a few more minutes. So you can get your comments in. Please like, subscribe, all that. Share with your friends. Super chats, member chats. Get read first. Brett Atwood, a member, says he's driving. Stay safe, bud. So many of y'all are talking to each other. I can't I cannot understand. It's making it nearly impossible for me to sort through the. Oh, but Bobby U says it's a good sign of a healthy live stream chat, so I'll live with that. It's just hard for me to pick the comments to read. Here's a positive comment from Sally Gainey. We as fans need to elevate these young women and not keep trying to devalue one to lift another. There's plenty of room to celebrate great women in basketball because, quite frankly, it's a win for women. Agree. And that's where I think there can be healthy comparison. What I don't like is, like I said, when the comparison is used as a way to discredit. Team USA 2028 will be a movie. Oh, yeah, that's going to be the official page turn, right? I am not overstating Clark's impact, Justin. I don't think it's possible to overstate Clark's impact. She made the WNBA a relevant league to the mainstream. She elevated women's sports as a whole. She elevated the next generation of women's college players, and she just started. She's one of the best basketball players I've ever seen, male or female, who had perhaps the greatest impact I've ever seen an individual have. Certainly on a short list with the likes of Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and people like that. But I've been doing this a long time, 20 plus years of professional sports media experience. And I don't know if I've ever seen an individual move the needle like Caitlin Clark does, or as Chenny Agumake called her, the needle. So no, it's not possible to overstate her impact. Henry Patterson says, always love my balanced points of view. Thank you. I do my best. Apparently Basil thinks I have a conspiracy against him. I don't. Tony Aiken says Juju is a better player because she does everything. She's the closest to Maya Moore that I've seen. Well, I mean, if we're going to do the comparison game, Juju is not even close to Caitlin Clark as a playmaker. So she doesn't do everything by that regard. She's not nearly the outside shooter that Caitlin Clark is yet either. But she could get there, I think, as a shooter. And she's improving, I think, as a playmaker. But I think that's the aspect that people just are glossing over with Caitlin Clark that's ridiculous to gloss over is her ability to make plays for herself and others. They're supporting me. That's good. Lisa, thank you. One of the questions I asked was for you to tell us which USC games you watched at least 90% of. But you could add ND, UCLA, UConn, or all the teams a top player from. Well, I mean, I'd have to go back through the entire season and do that for every. Are you saying in relative to the other players? I mean, because the teams that I've watched the most are UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame, and USC. Those are the teams that I've watched the most. How many games have I watched at least 90% of for USC? Notre Dame early in the season. The game at Oregon on the 7th. The game against UConn for sure. The game against Maryland, the 79-74 game. I went to Maryland, by the way. The game against Indiana at Indiana on January 19th. I watched that game. At Iowa, Ohio State, both UCLA games. I mean, the Michigan State game, I believe, was on Big Ten Network too. close to 10. Tulip plays Juju is not a point guard. LOL. Why would she have to be an elite playmaker? Well, I mean, you're saying if somebody does everything, that's all I'm saying. Like, you can't make the comment that Juju is better than Caitlin Clark all around or in all these different areas, and then I can just point out an area she's not. Versus, like, I would give Juju the edge defensively, and I would give Juju the edge in the mid range. Like I said, I'd give Clark the edge from the outside and Clark the large edge as a playmaker. And to be quite frank, Clark may still have the edge on the interior, which is because she's done it at the WNBA level. Caitlin Clark has also done all these things at the WNBA level, which until Juju does it at the WNBA level, how could I possibly put her on Clark's level when one has done it professionally? Again, I think there are so many great things to admire about Juju's game, and the best way I could say it is she's the best prospect since Caitlin Clark. Bobby, you said, I have had my doubts about Robin in the past, but his willingness to entertain points of view which differ from his has erased those doubts. Well, thank you. I mean, I do, you know, overall is different to everything. Juju will be better in her prime overall, not at everything. Juju is bigger, faster, stronger, better defense. I don't know. Is she stronger? I mean, I think you're discounting how fast and strong Caitlin Clark is by just saying that. Caitlin Clark is real fast and real strong. There's certain size advantages that might come into play, like length and all that. But I would not. In the paint, is she better? I mean, let's go look at the shot charts. Caitlin Clark was an elite finisher in the paint in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark was also top 25 in blocks and led all point guards in blocks, I believe. Juju is a tremendous prospect because of her size. All these things are completely, valid. But that's what I'm talking. Like, you just can't just put her over somebody who's done that at the WNBA level already. Had the best rookie season a guard at worst has ever had. Maybe the best WNBA season anyone has ever had. One of the best seasons, a guard has ever had, if not the best season a guard has ever had as a rookie. AV says, I joined the chat really late, but you make great points, Robin. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for joining the chat at all. Got about 5 more minutes. I'm also doing, what's the name of their show right after this? So I have to hop off to do, they invited me on their show and I accepted. It's called Caitlin Clark's Crossover on Mark and Rob's Sports Showdown. So I will be a panelist on that show as soon as this is over with. But thank you, AV, for the super chat. Thank you to everybody who has contributed and joined the chat. See, this is another comment like Juju is a better player hands down. Based on what? And what I'm saying got nothing to do with fandom, bro. got all to do with ball, nothing to do with fandom. Caitlin Clark, as a rookie, produced more points than anyone in the history of the WNBA ever had before. As a rookie, she broke the all-time assist record in the WNBA. As a rookie, she took a team from the number 1 pick in the draft to the playoffs. As a rookie, she scored more points than any point guard ever had before. As a rookie, she tied the career bests of whatever it was, 25-point and 10 assist game than anyone has ever had before. Like, hands down, Based on what? And I'm saying that as somebody who is praising the hell out of JuJu on this very show. And I love JuJu's game. And I've been wowed and impressed. And I can't wait to see what she does at the next level. But ain't nobody hands down better than Caitlin Clark on the planet. Just now I was not on WFAN, but I have been on WFAN. Kim Kelly, I don't understand why someone has to be the better player. Can we just say they're both great in their own right? Yeah, I mean, look, part of, if you're going to the very fabric of what a sports debate is, right? And where did sports talk start? Who's better than who? That's all in good fun and great. I got no problem with that. Really, I got no problem with that. But you can also simultaneously celebrate each. You can at the same time, prop up each. And they're also not at the, the same level of play yet to be directly compared. People can copy and paste. But I'm gonna have sports debates. That's just fun. So Jay Alam says y'all are debating Kobe versus Curry, which is fair. But another thing with Caitlin Clark is that she's also LeBron, the way she finishes around the rim. But yeah, I mean, that's not the worst thing I've ever seen, that comparison in the debate. And I would, all time, I have Curry over Kobe. Me personally. How is this a contradiction, Tariq? These are the same things. One day JuJu would be the first pick in the draft. She'd go today. The next day she's a great prospect. Yes, that means the same thing. JuJu Watkins is the best women's basketball prospect since Caitlin Clark. And she would absolutely be the number one. She'll be the number one pick when she comes out. And if she was able to declare right now, she would be the number one pick right now. That's what a prospect is. I do my best, y'all. Please like, subscribe, and all that jazz. This is a Starbucks. Kim, it's just black iced coffee or cold brew. I forgot to. Oh, would you guys want to do a before I get out real quick, because I only got a minute or two left, a March Madness contest? Yes, I think JuJu would likely go over Paige. Yes. I mean, you have to factor in Paige's marketability and all that, and she's very popular. So it's really that factors in. So it muddies the conversation a little bit because JuJu can't declare. But yes, I do think if people were just basing it on the basketball player, they would likely lean JuJu. But I do think Paige has really had a great close to her season and deserves to be the number one pick in the draft. But if y'all want to do so I have a company that has reached out to me. I'd have to figure out, but they would put together the contest. It would be more or less, we could set the entry can be whatever I decide. And then it would probably be something, I'll figure out exactly how it would work, but it would probably be like picking a team or something like I have to figure out exactly. I don't know if it could be exactly uh a bracket per se or like picking a championship favorite. I'll ask them how it would work, but I want to gauge the interest in the audience in doing one. In like 8 minutes, Brett. Vonda says yes to a March Madness contest. I don't get the Juju Asia comparisons. This is another one I've seen from Nancy. They're not similar players to me. Unless you're trying to say like they don't appeal to you. I don't think their personalities are alike and their games certainly aren't alike. All right, y'all. Last 60 to 90 seconds here. So, any other chats you want to get in? Any other things you want to get in? Now is the time. But I am almost out of time. As always, I truly and greatly appreciate all the contributions, members, super chats, regular chats, likes, subscribes, everything else. And look, I think this conversation in and of itself is a very telling. There you go, Basil. You said a positive thing. I'm proving I put it up on the screen. Thanks me for the answering the question. But very telling about where we're at. And that's where the good part of a comparison can come in. And look, we did 2 comparisons, right? JuJu versus Hannah Hidalgo. That's a comparison when you're saying who's the national player of the year, which is healthy for the current state of women's college basketball. And JuJu versus Caitlin Clark, showing what Caitlin Clark has been and what people think JuJu could become, which is healthy for the future of women's college basketball. And on that note, I leave you, or women's basketball as a whole. On that note, I leave you with the